My fellow builders, it has been a very long time. Thank you for your patience in this matter. I've been going through a lot, but I'm back with the Kit Bash project 2 years in the making. This is my RAEvin Eclipse project. What brought this project on? Well, a little bit of a story. I built the Eclipse Gundam on a vacation to Minnesota a couple of years ago. A dear friend of mine bought this for me. And I had the idea, you know what? What if I gave it an Eclipse color scheme? What if I gave it kind of a dark silhouette? So I researched it a little while. I had already built the kit, but I just let the finished kit sit built in the box underneath my bed for several months until I figured out what I wanted to do with it. After several months of research, I finally figured out how I wanted to make this kit look, and I wanted to do something I've only seen maybe a handful of builders do, and I wanted to put my spin on it. So I started with the LEDs for the head and the thrusters, the main thruster in the back lit up. I thought, where else could I go with this? And then it occurred to me, I have a Wing Zero that I don't use anymore. I have an RG version that is now a Christmas tree topper, effectively. And I have a Master Grade 2004 version that has suffered some damage that is, for all accounts, irreparable. In this case, irreparable damage being the missing rubbery feathers. And we all know those feathers are complete crap. So I got rid of those feathers, the rest of them. And I thought, the backpack is still solid, but the wings are actually old. So I bought a new Wing Zero just so I could cannibalize the backpack and the wings. And I have another project coming with those two Wing Zeros that are actually largely intact still. But anyway, as I digress, I thought, what if the RAEvin Eclipse had a different striker pack? One for high mobility and high speed, and better for, in atmosphere flight as well as, flying in space. I mean, the thing is probably already fast. I've never read any mangas on it, but hey, it's okay. And that's the thing about Gundam, Gunpla. Gunpla is freedom. So I took the backpack of a new 2004 Wing Zero model kit and I cannibalized that. And I took my Dremel and hollowed out some grooves so that I can make the back ridges on the back of the Eclipse Gundam lock up to it. The ideal was to be a striker pack in its own right, of its own kind, something unique. And I thought perhaps maybe, just maybe, this project could work. And this project took, 4 months, maybe 5 to figure out, but I was able to get it done. So here I test fitted the back piece that is going to be effectively permanently mounted to the back of the Gundam. Taking my Dremel, hollowing out some holes, and creating some channels for some female connector points for the model kit. I'm pleased to say, as complex as it was actually quite easy to do. Now, this was the challenging part, lighting up the wings. I saw a video of another builder, Pencil Knights. He actually did some resin work on his wings for a perfect grade commission Wing Zero that he did. And I thought I could do something similar, but I knew it'd have to be unique in my own. Due to the constraints that I had, I am not familiar with creating resin pieces. I am not equipped to handle resin pieces, so I stuck with what I know. And that is putting in LEDs. I knew I had to create channels for each and every one for these LEDs to sit. The plan was to have 7 LEDs total in each wing, but I decided to drop it down to 3. And then I recreated the feathers using plow plate, flexible plow plate. Now this plow plate is only about 1 millimeter thick at most. So these were prone to breaking, so I created these off screen, but the effect that I went for, oh my God, it was such a joy to create these. wings in the back specifically, the ones that are, articulated, they just go up and down and they spread open. I wanted to do a carbon fiber print. Now, I have talked to many builders about it. I got the feedback on it. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't. I do agree I should have probably used a smaller pattern, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I wanted it at the end of the day to be almost feather-like in a way. So that's why I stretched out the larger pattern of pantyhose on them. Yes, those are pantyhose. Got them from a beauty supply store in the back section. And it got the job done. And I thought it looked amazing. I didn't want to change it. I didn't want to go back and do it over again. I thought, you know what? They don't all have, the carbon fiber pattern doesn't have to be uniform necessarily. Once I got all that painted, I routed the LEDs through the wing and the joints and tested it and everything, and the LEDs worked just fine. They worked exactly the way I had hoped. Although I wish they were a tad brighter, but if I had put a larger LED in there or even two LEDs, I would have run into space problems. And the last thing I want to do is compromise anything stability-wise for appearances. I will say this about kit bashing: you have to plan. You do have to, quote unquote, wing it. There's no real manual on how to combine two different kits of different Gundam universes. You really just have to plan it out and think it out. And I really think I executed this kit very well. This project really came out of, how should we say, a little bit of depression. I'm not gonna lie. I can't deny it. Like, I was depressed. I was going through some difficult times at my previous place of employment, and I just wasn't. And overall, I just really wasn't happy. And building Gunpla has definitely been my safe space to be creative and to work through my problems. I will say this: mental health is a very real thing. So even if you love building and you feel the need to step away, step away. There's no shame in it. The blue that you see in this part of the video right here is a blue that I mixed. It is called, I call it RAEvin Blue. And why is it called RAEvin Blue? It's called RAEvin Blue because if you actually look at pictures of actual ravens, which is what I did in part of my research process, ravens actually have anywhere between a blue, green, or purple sheen in their feathers. Now, I don't have purple, and I didn't have time to wait. And with everything being expensive nowadays, I decided to just use what I had. So I created the blue, and I thought it worked magnificently well here. Now, if you see here toward where the feathers are mounted on top of the wings, yes, that is something that I ended up covering up with a large paper feather. Did I want to do that? No. Was I kind of pressed for time? Yes, because I was going through another life change, a very positive one at the time. So took my paintbrush, colored in some of the missed spots, and then went back to installing the LEDs. For these, I used chip blue LEDs from RAEvin Designs, mounted each and every one of them, and it worked like a charm. When it happened, oh my gosh, my fellow builders, it was just amazing. The end was always amazing. Just wait and see. The accelerant that is used to actually solidify the super glue does not damage the paint, but just be careful anyway. I have not had any, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. But so far, it has not damaged the paint in the past. Now, this part, you're probably wondering, is he gonna leave those wires exposed? And the answer is no, I'm not leaving them exposed. Absolutely not. I would never dream of doing something like that. Over the years of working with LEDs, I started off very sloppy, with very sloppy placement of my wires. And I have gotten better. I've improved my techniques, and I've learned that planning the LED placement is super important, and is just as important as routing the wiring. However, with these wings, it wasn't as simple. To cover up the wires, I actually ended up having to use some paper feathers that a friend of mine bought from me for a Wing Zero project approximately 5 years ago during the pandemic. For my Wing Zero, I had known, honestly, I was going to use it for that, but then I thought, you know what? The Verka was coming out. There was no point in putting that. The Verka's beautiful kit by itself, it doesn't need that extra flair, at least in my opinion. But I kept the paper feathers anyway. So off screen, I took those pieces that you see right here, and I started outlining how I wanted to potentially lay them down onto the wings. So that took a lot of guesswork to get the symmetry just right and matching on both wings. So I took care of that off screen, but you kind of see where I'm going with this. The paper feathers did actually add a layer of dimension and depth to them on this project, so I was really happy. Now, these vents here, you probably wonder what I'm going to do with those. You just put feathers on them. Well, I didn't put feathers on everything, and I didn't put LEDs. I only put 3 LEDs in the wings that you saw earlier. So to cover up the spots where the old feathers on the old Wing Zero would be in the front of the wings, I decided to put RCS control vents, micro thrusters, if you will. And I wanted to make sure that the vents matched. They stood out from the wings rather than disappeared. So I painted them that same RAEvin metallic blue that I created. This took about 2 coats to make sure it was solid, and after that, the installation was quite simple. Now you're probably wondering, do I have exposed, covered, and protected wires coming out of the wings? The answer is yes. I do have that because there was truly no other way to route it. I tried to route it through the joint that the Wing Zero wings actually has, but unfortunately, due to time constraints and space limitations, I wasn't able to route it the way I had hoped, but that's okay. There are actually several Gundams that have exposed, Gundams and non-Gundams that have exposed cabling, and they were protected. In this case, because they're black, they kind of blend in, so you really don't even notice it. So I'm okay with them being out, ultimately. And toward the end, yeah, you're going to probably see the connector point for the main power supply be exposed. Yeah, ran out of male to female connector points. So make sure you do an inventory of your supplies and order accordingly. Usually I like to keep a back stock, but unfortunately I didn't anticipate running out. I thought I had plenty, but I did not. So yeah, this is what I was talking about right here, having the cables, the power cables come through the wings and through the back as such. That actually worked out very nicely. And I kind of gave it its own backstory. Basically, it's a striker pack. It's high powered. It feeds off the reactor. I'm certain that the Eclipse Gundam does not have a reactor, an N-jammer canceller like the Strike Freedom or the Infinite Justice. But you know what? For the purposes of this, and this is my reimagination of the Eclipse Gundam, it has a neutron, it has an N-jammer canceller, making it more powerful. Going back to what I was saying earlier, basically I was just not happy in my life at the time. I was not as happy as I could be, and it was starting to wane on me. And with all that's going on in the world, things just got gray for me. And I don't usually go to a gray place, but I went there. And I came to the project when I needed to get something done to clear my head, and it often helped. But it always helps to have someone to talk to. And thankfully I have someone in my life to talk to, but I might need to consider other options as well moving forward. But all I'm saying is mental health is a real thing. It's not a joke. And Gunpla is definitely good for my mental health. But all I will say this, my fellow builders, this was a fun project. I will actually, a word of caution regarding this. I pre-built the Eclipse Gundam at first, and I didn't account for one thing. I didn't account for weight distribution. So the waist, the ab crunch in the model kit, it tends to droop to the back because of how heavy the wings are. So I was like, damn, that's messed up. But you know what? You live and you learn. I know next time I do something like this, if I'm adding a model, a backpack to a kit that typically doesn't have a heavy backpack to it, I know I need to strengthen up the waist and abdominal joints on the mobile suit before I do anything. But at the end of the day, this project was a very fun build. I love the sharp, angular look of it. The only thing I cannot stand about the Eclipse Gundam is the feet. The feet are the absolute weakest part. So this kit is gonna be on a flexible stand permanently. It will never touch the ground, and I will never transform it. I like transforming kits, don't get me wrong, but at least with this time around, some things aren't meant to change. Some things need to just stay as they are. But I do want to thank everyone for your time, your attention, your patience. And thank you to all of the new subscribers to my YouTube, to my Instagram, and to my TikTok. And stay tuned to the very end because the next project is going to be amazing. Till then, thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next build.